Hello, my name is Sophie Ambrose and I'm here to report on the hazards located during the walkthrough stimulated workplace video on the learning portal. The first few hazards that I noticed was the box in the entryway near the reception area. There was also an electrical cord near the student salon counter in the entryway to the student salon. There was a footstep in the middle of the storage room, so a small ladder that could be a hazard for someone to trip or fall. There were also towels in the washing basket in the middle of the storage room, which could easily be a trip hazard for people. There was also loose cords on all of the lighting equipment in the Madame Bachet training room. I also noticed that there was a bottle of distilled water next to the electrical cords, which also could be an electrical hazard. There was a mop and bucket in the middle of the floor in the wet room, along with a cupboard door left open in the wet room of the student salon. Brooms and mops along the back wall of the wet room, which were not stored away correctly. The wet floor sign was also not out in the middle of the wet room. The rubbish bin lid was off and also put to the side of the wet room. It should always be replaced. Also, the orange wax dissolvent was left open on the countertop in the wet room, and all chemicals should definitely be stored away to avoid a potential hazard. There was leftover and used paper towel located on the countertop of the wet room. That should also be disposed of immediately. And the first aid kit was also left out, and the door where the first aid kit is located was left open on the wet room, and the first aid kit was left on top of the counter. There were also quite a lot of chemicals on top of the counter of the wet room, and they were not stored away correctly, which could be a hazard. There was a rubbish bin blocking the emergency exit sign in the hallway near the student toilets, which is the only emergency exit located on that floor, so that could be definitely a hazard in the event of an emergency. There were also some student lockers left open, and then moving through into the student kitchen, there were quite a few hazards that I noticed. Chairs left out of the student salon and not placed underneath the table to prevent someone from tripping. There was also a spill located on the floor in the student kitchen. The kitchen sink was full of leftover dishes, and there were also drinks and food left on the bench within the student kitchen. The lids were also off the bins in the student kitchen. So that's not a very nice environment for people to be in. It also can be quite hazardous as well. I've come up with a few recommendations to avoid hazards within the workplace and also within the Bachet student salon. If you do see a hazard, it would be great if you could bring it to the attention of people, because it could put yourself and also your colleagues in danger. If it is safe to remove the hazard, then you should always do so, and make sure that your colleagues are aware of the hazard and what you did to remove it, so that precaution can be taken in the future. Sometimes these are not done because someone simply may not know how, may not know where the items are put away and stored correctly, so always ask if you are unsure. Loose electrical cords can definitely be the cause of electrical hazards, as well as slip and trip hazards. I believe that they should be removed immediately. Cords can be tied up with a rubber band and placed away, and any extension cords should be folded up and stored correctly. Any storage boxes or unpacked stock left in the entryways of the student salon can be a trip hazard. When a staff member attempts to lift the box, she's not adhering to the manual lifting procedure, and she is using an inappropriate lifting technique. That could also result in injury to the staff member. So following the correct lifting procedure is incredibly important. Laundry bags and the step ladder, which are in the middle of the storage room, are definitely an indicator of a clear hazard for tripping and falling. Someone could quite easily trip because it's not been put away correctly. You will also notice on the way out of exiting the room that the steamer glass is sitting on top of the steamer. This could actually fall and be knocked onto the floor and smashed, which could potentially lead to an injury of a staff member or a client. The glass dishes should really be cleaned and replaced and put back into the steamer straight away when they're not in use. The wet floor room has a mop and bucket in the middle of the room. The sign was actually leaning against the wall and is not in clear view of the staff and students of the salon. So it's always a good idea to have that out at all times during the wet room, because it can unfortunately become a slip hazard for staff and students alike. On the way down the hallway during the video, you do see all of the lockers that are currently open. It could be a really dangerous injury hazard in the event of emergency if someone accidentally bangs into one of those lockers. And you'll notice that in the student kitchen, those stools that haven't been put away are definitely a trip hazard for people. There should probably be a wet floor sign out during the student kitchen as well, because there was a little slip on the floor which hadn't been cleaned up properly. So getting that away and getting that wet floor sign out so people are aware of that danger is also incredibly important. I think that the wet room is probably one of the most major hazards at the LA Bache College, with students and staff continually going in and out of the room for washing of hands, preparation of treatments, cleaning up after treatments. It can very easily become slippery and incredibly dangerous. I think that people should always enter the room with caution and ensure you've always locked away any chemicals and products in their correct storage place. You should always try to leave the wet room as neat and tidy as possible and free from overflowing water on the countertops. If you see a hazard that can put you and any of your colleagues in danger, it is safe to remove it, then you absolutely should do so. It is also very important to make your colleagues aware of the hazard and what you did to avoid anything like this happening again in the future. It is really important that as staff and students of the college that you're continually reviewing the workplace environment and work practices to control and or prevent any future workplace hazards that may occur. I've come up with some ways that we can prevent and control hazards within the student salon and also the workplace. I think regularly and thoroughly maintaining equipment is really important. So at the start of the day, checking all of the equipment that you're going to be using, but also just a general check over of the student rooms is important. And also checking them over at the end of the day, making sure that the wax pots are off and the floor is free from wax residue to prevent any hazards that may occur. Ensure that the hazard correction procedures are all in place. Ensuring that everybody knows how to use and maintain personal protective equipment and the tools during treatments is really important. That could prevent someone having an injury or causing harm to themselves or others as well. Need to make sure that everyone understands and follows all safe work procedures at all times. Ensure that when needed, there is a medical program tailored to your facility to help prevent workplace hazards and exposures. So in the event someone was to ingest some type of chemicals, it's really important that staff are aware of how to facilitate and how to deal with these type of situations. I have also identified some unsafe work practices during the video that have happened in the student salon. Some of these include not using the correct lifting procedure to move boxes in the entryway. This can cause serious harm to somebody if they're not doing this correctly, especially with their lower back. Being a beauty therapist, you are on your feet all day, so it's important to take care of yourself. Not putting away electrical cords in the treatment rooms and also within the entryway is quite dangerous. The bottle of distilled water is also an unsafe work practice. If you're filling up the water in the steamers, it's important to put the distilled water away immediately. You don't want somebody to fall over or even to spill onto any of the electrical cords of the steaming machines. The chemicals on the countertops is also an unsafe work practice. I think that it's really important that if you're using those chemicals for cleaning or for anything else, that they are put away immediately. The students should definitely be aware that leaving lockers open is a hazard. They should always be closed and locked at all times so that this doesn't happen in the future. It's also really important that the students also ensure that they're putting the chairs away and just cleaning up after themselves in the student kitchen. They use a dish, washing it up. It's also for the health and hygiene of your colleagues, so bearing that in mind as well. It's also really important that you don't leave the steriliser door open. We can't be using unsterilised tools on clients. It does definitely increase the risk of any type of cross-contamination, skin diseases, anything like that. So it's definitely important that all sterilised utensils are placed away correctly and the steriliser door remains closed even when it's not in use. I've also got here some recommendations for the unsafe work practices. Unsafe work practices threaten the physical and mental health of staff. Unsafe work practices are avoidable with good management, training and awareness of all staff members. As a student of the Le Bachet College, you have the obligation to take care of yourself and your fellow student safety, report safety issues to your trainer and or college staff, and cooperate with all management and student teachers in the event of safe practices, if they're introducing new safe practices or refreshing you on the existing ones that are currently in place. Safe work practices include your company's general workplace, rules and other occupational specific. For example, when a hazard is enclosed, exposure can occur when maintenance is necessary. Through establishing safe work practices, employee exposure to the hazards can be further reduced. Ensuring you are not putting yourself and your colleagues in danger. Something like the steriliser door being left open can affect the clients during the treatment. Leaving your food around can also be unsafe, especially if it's a banana peel. Someone could easily slip and injure themselves. In terms of the identification of a manual lifting procedure, it is a major handling risk. Proper manual lifting techniques must be adhered to by bending at the knees to avoid any further back strain. If the item is simply too heavy, you should have two people lift the item, or if available, a trolley can also be used to move the item to its correct location. I'd also like to identify and review the college's evacuation and emergency procedure. This information has come direct from the student handbook. In the case of a fire, you must first alert the others in the immediate area and then contact the fire brigade by calling 000. You must clearly state to the operator the address of the college. Each state and college location has a different address, so ensuring that you know this is incredibly important. If you can, and if it is safe to do so, advise the operator the nature of the fire. Example, an electrical fire. The designated fire warden must be notified immediately. You should only ever attempt to extinguish the fire if you or any of your immediate colleagues are not in danger. In the case of an evacuation, all staff and students must calmly proceed out the building to the designated area in accordance with the evacuation procedure. Walk. Do not run and try to remain as calm as possible. Prior to the evacuation, make sure that all electrical equipment, including power and air conditioners, are switched off, should you have time and it is safe to do so. Once you have reached the evacuation assembling area, you are not to leave unless you have been told to do so by the designated fire warden or college staff. A roll call is taken to ensure A roll call will be taken at the evacuation point to ensure all people within the college have been accounted for. Once the evacuation has been finished, no staff or students should return to the building for any reason whatsoever unless it is deemed safe by the fire brigade. The designated fire wardens must ensure that all staff, student and visitors are accounted for. This is their responsibility. The designated person for the fire rate and evacuation procedures within the Elabashe College is Jodie Key Jones. Each college has a different person, and Jodie is the Sydney allocated fire warden officer. Please become familiar with yourself with this person when you're going to the college. The evacuation point is also different for each college. Located in the Sydney College, there are 2 evacuation points, one towards the rear of the building and one towards the bathroom, and also one at the entryway within the college. Safety alarm. The fire safety alarm is located on the right wall as you walk into the college. It is clearly marked with a red sign stating that it is an emergency fire evacuation alarm. For further information regarding occupational health and safety, this information is available via the New South Wales OH&S Act 2000. It will describe the procedures and activities that are needed to protect the health, safety and welfare of all of the people within the Elabashe College workplace. Who can help? Please advise your supervisor immediately if you see a safety problem within the workplace or the college. If you have concerns about safe practices within the workplace, you can absolutely contact the Workplace OH&S, your union or the Work Cover Authority located within your state. Thank you for watching.